Got a calendar in mind.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August meeting of the Ulster County Transportation Council Technical Committee. We're going to go around the room and do introductions, and then we'll go to those folks that are on that are remote, and I'll ask Dave to read those names so that we can record you into the agenda. So starting with me, I'm Dennis Doyle, the Planning Director for Ulster County and also the Director of the Ulster County Transportation Council.
Dave Placzek, Town Lloyd Supervisor.
Herb Woods. Let's see, am I here for GPI or am I here for legislative? I don't know, I'm just here.
Allie Fairley, New York State Department of Transportation.
Nicole Farmer, DOT.
Ed Klein, Ulster County DPW.
John Morrow, this is my last meeting, Town of Ulster.
Congratulations or condolences, John. I'm not sure which.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
I will
Yes.
miss you all.
Yeah,
I've had a wonderful time and thank you for the opportunity to serve the county of Ulster in this capacity and the town of Ulster too.
You can still zoom in if you miss it.
We'll keep you on the.
we'll send you the link, John.
That sounds like a fun thing.
Yeah, we can do that.
Be happy to.
Thank you, John, for all your efforts. Much appreciated.
Jean Walsh, Supervisor, Town of Rosendale.
Brian Slack, Principal Transportation Planner, Ulster County Transportation Council.
Dave Stoss, UCTC.
And Dave, if you would read those who are remote.
Yeah, so on the line, we have Leanne Thornton. And we have Chris Kate, John Schulteis, Laura Ripley, and Shelley Johnston.
And we have a guest in the room, if they would introduce themselves.
Sir,
Ed Wilmer,
Thank you.
Center for Post-Carbon Logistics.
Yes, thank you.
welcome.
So thank you, everyone. We'll start off with the technical committee welcome introductions. We've done that. Call for citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments in the room? Online?
I see no hands raised.
Hearing none, approval of the May 23rd, 2023 technical committee meeting summary. May I have a motion for discussion purposes, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Supervisor. Thank you, John. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried, moved on. Communications and announcements, Brian?
I have two announcements, communications. I do understand that New York State Department of Transportation will be issuing a call for proposals under the Transportation Alternatives Program. Any day now, I'm suspecting. We've been told late summer. And it is late summer. So this year, we would expect an increase in funding available. There's still a maximum award amount of $5 million. We have discussed at the MPO director level to increase the ceiling on awards, but this year it will remain at $5 million. And there will be additional funding made available through the statewide allocation of carbon reduction program funds. So at the end of the day, that means more funding available to municipalities in Region 8. So we will forward that announcement. The Transportation Alternatives Program is for, as the name implies, alternative forms of transportation, including non-motorized trails, sidewalk facilities, even tree-lined boulevards, and other types of transportation alternative programs.
When is that gonna be due?
They have only said late summer, so I would expect it to come before or after Labor Day. The other announcement I have is the Ulster County Transportation Council on Thursday submitted a grant application to the Federal Highway Administration through the Federal Protect program. Protect acronym stands for Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation. This is a formula program for both planning and construction projects. We have applied for a planning grant, which is unusual for us because we already do receive federal PL funds for the purposes of planning, transportation planning. but this is 100% reimbursable. And the scope of work is pretty significant for this particular plan proposal. It's a detailed examination of infrastructure, primarily roads and bridges in Ulster County, and their susceptibility and vulnerability to the risks of flooding and excessive heat exposure. So we'll be doing a detailed analysis. This is a phase 2 proposal to the initial vulnerability assessment that we completed in 2022. So we'll see what happens.
So this is a county,
Yes, it would be a countywide effort.
is it for all roads in the county or just county?
What the proposed methodology, which I have here, if you're interested, is to examine the, at a minimum, the top 50 road segments and bridge segments that were identified through the initial phase 1 approach, but there'll be an additional opportunity for municipalities to throw in additional facilities if they have a bridge or road segment of concern that didn't rank highly. We have an opportunity to include it through the methodology as well. We're going to have a significant public, if awarded, we'd have a significant public engagement process where we would have, I think, some sort of survey or mapping form sent to each municipality so that they can provide their input electronically is what we're proposing. I would expect award announcements to come out at the end of this year. So our fingers are crossed. We'll see what happens. We never applied for a proposal like this, but the funding opportunity being 100% reimbursable was, I think, a good opportunity. So we decided to take a shot at it.
Any questions? Any other announcements, Brian?
That's all I have.
You're gonna do ARPA later. Is that what you're gonna do?
Well, it's on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any communications and announcements from council members?
I could just say that Amy McKenzie has left DOT. She moved to DEC. She has been our rep for UCTC for a while. So Allie Fairley will now be the new rep that you'll start seeing more often. So please add her to your mailing list.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other communications and announcements? Any communications and announcements from those who are on remote?
I see no hands.
Thank you, David.
Dennis, do you want to welcome our
I'm going to do.
guest? Okay.
Thank you. So we went around and introduced everybody. We had a few members join us, so if they would introduce as well, I'd appreciate it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tony Rocher. I'm the director at Ulster County Area Transit. Sorry for being late today. We had a phase 2 meeting for the electric infrastructures. Scooted out of that early. And
Good morning. My name is Tony Trosha. I am the deputy director for UCAT. Doesn't get confusing at all. I promise.
Paratoni.
down, I think the line.
Yeah,
We wanted to.
Absolutely.
Laura T. Town of East Sopus, representing District 8.
thank you, Laura. So moving on, new business, item number 5A, resolution number A, draft UCTC resolution number 2023-05. It's amendment to the UCTC Federal Transportation Fiscal Year 2023-2027 Transportation Improvement Program to add a new Bridge New York Awards as shown in attachment 1. May I have a resolution for discussion purposes, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Palchek. I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce that wrong a lot. I have a motion and a second. Brian?
Yes, draft resolution 23-5 programs Bridge New York Awards on the UCTC Transportation Improvement Program. We had applications submitted at the end of 2022, awards, or the review team met in early 23, and awards were announced at the beginning of the summer, late spring, time-wise. So we're finally getting them programmed on the Transportation Improvement Program. Those two awards include one for Ulster County Department of Public Works, and that is the replacement of the Hurley Mountain Road Bridge over the Esopus Creek. Total project cost $5.7 million. Significant project there. As well as a bridge in Plattekill, which is a new structure to replace what is a interesting situation on Old Mill Road with a combined bridge and culvert right now. Will be replaced with one new bridge, for a total project cost of just under 3.3 million. According to UCTC tip operating procedures, any new projects to be added to the tip require technical committee approval, public notice and 15-day public comment period, and final policy committee approval.
Bridge on down the very south end of the road there.
I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
I think you're referring
The
to.
Plattekill Bridge? No, the one, Early Mountain Road. Yeah, that's all the way down at the intersection with Condor. Almost Condor, yeah. So you just did the other one on, coming up by the old bear.
Any comments? John, you all set?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
None from the line.
Hearing none, any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried, thank you. Item B. Draft UCTC resolution number 2023-06. It's amendment to the UCTC federal fiscal year 2023-2027 Transportation Improvement Program to add new federal carbon reduction funds to PIN number 876122, as shown in attachment 1. Do I have a motion for discussion, please? Thank you, Ed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I have a motion and a second. Discussion, Brian?
Members may recall back in the late winter, the Ulster County Transportation Council issued an expression of interest letter to all municipalities regarding the availability of carbon reduction funds. These are a new funding program under the bipartisan infrastructure law. MPOs across New York State have received a sub allocation. So these are dollars that we can program according to program rules as we are able. So per year, we had available in federal funds just under $200,000. The majority of program rules specify that anything that is essentially a transportation alternative program eligible project could also be spent, could also utilize carbon reduction funding. The funds could also be used toward transit purposes, intelligent transportation systems to reduce idling time, and a variety of other sources. So we received several proposals. City of Kingston, Town of New Paltz, and Village of New Paltz. We put City of Kingston's request aside because it's not until 2025 that they would need the funds. And the most immediate need was from the Village of New Paltz, and it was not a significant need in terms of funding. So the funding we have agreed to provide is covering cost overages on the sidewalk project in the Village of New Paltz with the amount shown. They have already obligated funds for construction of this project. The project obviously has not gone forward yet, but they plan, I think they have issued a bid as we speak and are awaiting responses and opening of that bid. So this is a rough estimate right now of what the cost needs are to complete the project. It's about 116 in federal with a 20% required local match. If the bids come in exceeding the amount, we do have some leeway and can provide the village with additional funding, not to exceed $199,000 in federal funds during that fiscal year. With remaining funds, we are also prepared to provide the town of New Paltz with funding for their H.W. Du Bois Transportation Alternatives Project, which is a protected path on that road. But we're waiting to see what the final need is for the village to see what money is available then to offer to the town if they're still interested. One final revision, the mayor of New Paltz in reviewing this did indicate that the section covering Henry W. Du Bois sidewalks has been eliminated from this project. So that is a revision to this, to the description. There, I don't believe any sidewalk segments, so we will review that with LPU and make sure the description is accurate before we put it out to public notice.
And so the reason for this is essentially to get the project on the tip. So it cuts down some of the timeframes relative to approval as it relates to their letting schedule. And we would then do the necessary amendments. The council would, by actions today, would actually designate the funding from the carbon reduction to go to this project, and we would adjust numbers accordingly. Generally, we don't like to do this. We'd like to have a full engineering estimate completed before we start putting projects on the tip. But the thought here was in conversations with ourselves, yes, more than anything else, was to put this on so that we could make sure that it was on the tip and the council was committed to essentially using these funds in this manner. Mr. Litz?
I'm looking at the program sheet. Is this listed correctly? $133,000 for just inspection of the work? What's the total cost of the project?
You're right, that is an error. Sorry, that's,
Construction and construction
They're
inspecting got
reversed.
reversed.
thank you. This is why we have the review.
I mean, that makes more sense.
This is why I usually have Dave do
I
ballots.
thought the new folks had asked for this just specifically for inspection.
No, they had two things.
Because they heard the estimate for the inspection.
Yeah.
was way over what it took.
Could that, that may
That
have
could
been,
be.
I apologize. I don't have the initial, thank you, Ed, and thank you, Herb. I don't have the original request
Let me
in
see if I
front of
can
me,
find it.
so I'm not sure what
The total's right. We
The
just don't
total
know
is
the
correct.
split.
right.
Is the council comfortable moving forward?
Well, what is it, what should be switched then, the 106?
We're not sure if
Oh,
anything
you-
needs to be switched
wanna-
just yet. Dave's gonna see if he can look up the correspondence.
Because maybe
It's in the
that's just
folder.
Inspection
I'm sorry,
for a
Dick?
bigger
I
project.
gotta see if it's in the folder.
What this
They had a shortfall on the inspection.
right, instead of the whole cost.
The other tricky part is that the construction funds that have already been obligated are not shown in front of us, so it's comparatively, yeah.
That's what we. Oh. But that's only probably the project that we're paying for from TIF, not the other project.
They're extra good engineers. Well, I mean, it's only like, I don't know. 2 blocks of, sorry.
We're checking to see whether we can pull it up.
I have this spreadsheet. That's the only thing that's in there. Let's take a look.
If you go under the 2022 program, carbon reduction funds, expression of interest letters.
No, so the spreadsheet that we have in there shows construction inspection as being the 106. But let me see if I can find the letter itself. now.
What's the total cost of the project?
Well, it's interesting because this one fell off the tip. So
Right.
previous, yeah, it's in the off years. So I'd have to take a look at prior tip to see what the total
Yeah, if I
project
remember
cost is.
correctly, the Henry W. Du Bois comes down
Mhm.
and where it hits the village. There's a couple of blocks of sidewalk to connect it to. And I mean, I forget what a huge number compared to even what a mile plus of improvements.
Yeah, I put this on the- it goes from 299 to Henry. It was on the side of Broad Street.
Or it was 32. I don't know, it was one or the other.
Okay. Here's the
But it's
request.
smaller.
No, it's from the town.
Okay.
This is for the village, is the request.
Sorry, I saw Henry W. Du Bois. Folders.
I think the mayor is in Ireland right now too, otherwise.
Oh, Jesus.
City of Kingston, sorry, they're not labeled very well in here. There we
Here we
go.
go.
Labeled UCTC carbon reduction funds, so sorry. Construction inspection 137.5.
Project construction actually 252,000. And the inspection is 137. Great.
Not so well done.
And the other overriding issue with this project is that it was a relatively small transportation alternative grant. I think the original grant amount was somewhere in the vicinity of $250,000. We have since, I think the rules of the program have since been revised by NISDOT that I think the minimum of projects is, do you recall, Nicole? It's above that. It's such a small amount of federal funds, it's almost not worth the trouble. But it's a legacy project that goes back so far that I believe this mayor's administration inherited it from the previous administration. And they're really just trying to get this across the finish line at this point.
I will say that HWA views construction and inspection as one phase, so how it's broken out on the tip doesn't necessarily affect their ability to obligate it correctly. So take that.
And the mayor did review it, and he did offer his approval with the minor change in the description.
And they did submit this letter, so.
So I have a motion on the floor. You're in discussion. I guess the real question here is the council comfortable of moving these funds to the tip for this project in that amount? Regardless of how it's split.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion on the floor for discussion, John. So we're all set. We just need to complete the discussion. Any additional discussion in the room? Any additional discussion online? Hearing none, any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
C, item C on your agenda, draft UCTC resolution 2023-07. Apportionment of federal fiscal year 2023 Federal Transit Administration, section 5339, formula funds in the Mid-Hudson Transportation Management Area. I have a motion for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Thank you, Ed. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Supervisor. I have a motion and second. Brian or Tony? Brian, works for me.
Yeah, thank you, Des. The resolution 2023-7 provides section 5339 FTA funds to Ulster County. And this is apportioned through the Mid-Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area. Section 5339 funds are called bus and bus facility program funds, so they can only be spent on those types of capital purposes. And through the 2023 apportionment, you can see on attachment 1, Ulster County is set to receive $437,731 of 5339 funds. A 20% local match is required for the use of those funds. The other public operators and the dollars that they're provided are shown also. And so that's how the allocation is split in federal fiscal year 23. The split formula is based on primarily the number of vehicles within each public operator's fleet.
Any questions? Any comments?
Can I just ask, is this money to purchase new buses or to work on facilities?
Right now, it'll go into savings.
Okay,
And it will essentially be up to Ulster County government and UCAT to determine how the funds will be made available, sorry, how they'll be used. I think at this point, we have a fair amount of unspent dollars that have been approved in front of these from earlier years. And the general idea is to spend old money before new. So
can I just ask, where did this number come from if we don't have a plan? for
They're
this?
formula funds.
It's just been.
They're formula funds, so they're not depending on a grant application or anything else. UCAT does submit to the council a program of projects that shows 5 years worth of projects.
Okay.
And we do have that, and they're both buses, some facility work, particularly with respect to some infrastructure upgrades and software upgrades, and then preventive maintenance operations and administration.
And
in
is
those
there a
numbers.
plan for some of the old money that's put aside right now? Do we have a plan to spend money this year or next year?
Well, we have just submitted some of our regular 5307 funds that we received from LPA. But we also have an electrification plan that all of our buses and vehicles have to be converted to electric. So most of these funds will go towards those electric buses because they're over $1 million each. And right now, the smaller buses, we are trying to find someone that actually
Makes sense.
produces them. We're having a hard time finding that.
Yeah, we're having trouble with at the town level to getting them.
Electric vehicles. And for FTA, you have to, well, we have to be careful to make sure that they meet the Buy America program because that's one of the stipulations to receive these funds.
These allocations come from the three MPOs in the region, both Orange County Transportation Council and Dutchess County Transportation Council are all passing the same resolutions with the same allocations. So if the council decides not to move forward, we're going to have two other counties that can't move forward as well.
And are we allowed to hold on to money for how long? 5 years, okay, so we have to spend the money that's 5 years.
Oh, we'll spend it.
And if you need any help with some, I don't know what size vehicles.
Well, we ended up buying, we didn't buy an electric vehicle, the last one we wanted to buy, we had to wait, we waited over a year and we still couldn't get one, we ended up buying it again.
So we bought 3 e-transits, they're the smaller ones. And they actually have been working well for us.
Well, we don't buy that many vehicles, so it's like, when we buy one, takes a while to get all that approved, it's not, we're not buying the volume that you are.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other comments or concerns? Any other online?
See no hands raised online.
Do I have a motion and a second? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried, thank you. Item D, draft UCTC resolution 2023-08. It's a portion of federal fiscal year 2023 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307, 5340 formula funds in the Mid-Hudson Transportation Management Area. I have a motion for discussion purposes. Thank you, David. Thank you. John, was it John? Thank you, John. I have a motion for discussion purposes on the floor. Brian,
sure, draft resolution 2003-8 apportions FTA funds attributable to the Mid-Hudson Valley QMA, but this is a different FTA program. These funds, and there's a typo I'm seeing in the under attachment 1 on 23-8. These are 5307 funds. I apologize. That description above attachment 1 is incorrect. It's not 5339. It's correct on the cover page. 5307 funds can be used for operations or capital, essentially any purpose for in the management of the public transit provider. The funds attributable to the TMA for 2023 total just over $27 million. And they are split as shown in the attachment. Ulster County government and Ulster County Area Transit are scheduled to receive just over 760 or well over $760,000 through this apportionment. The inter-county commuter bus services, that includes trailways, are also eligible to receive funding through this allocation as well, but that would be distributed under a separate agreement and resolution. We also, as a TMA, maintain a savings of unallocated funds. So funding not attributable or given to any of the providers shown are put in savings, and for 2023 we will put $2.3 million in savings for future transit purposes within the TMA.
So there's a couple of key takeaways here. One is the fact that the reason that Ulster County Area Transit or Ulster County as a government entity is a smaller amount has direct relationship to the amount of service we run in the TMA. So we run service in the TMA that basically runs into Poughkeepsie out of New Paltz, and it runs the southern Ulster County into Orange County. We don't run a lot of service there, which is why the number is as small as you think. It's a passenger mile calculation relative to that does that. The other thing to think about is that the inter-county commuter bus services, those are formula-based funds. These funds are earned through something called the National Transit Database work that gets reported. So these are earned by these carriers, and then they're allocated on the basis of earnings. And they're limited to a formula that the TMA has adopted, which has recently changed. So the original formula in terms of those allocations was effectively to take their preventive maintenance needs, which they're required to file with NISDOT, and allow them to recoup up to their preventive maintenance needs, and any additional funds are set aside. The public carriers take 10% and set that into their own formulas in terms of money available. To set aside any of the money that's not used above meeting their present preventive maintenance needs is what is known as unallocated and available for future TMA program. The reason for that is that transportation demands are lumpy. They come in really big chunks. When you build facilities or when you need bus replacements, those chunks are usually well beyond what your allocation formulas are. Think of what Tony just said: a single bus costing $1 million, your allocation formulas are 700,000. So that's where this comes from. The recent change has been related to what's happened to the transit system in the what I call the inter-county commuter bus services in the resolution, have yet to recover from the pandemic. And so what's going on is that their costs have gone up. And since their allocation formulas were based on preventive maintenance needs, and they're not running the same amount of services, but they're having more costs because of the cost of their vehicles, the cost of fuel, and the cost of labor. The TMA made a switch out of preventive maintenance filings. Those costs have actually gone down to operating costs. So the allocation now to the private carriers or to the intercommunity bus services are now based on operating costs as defined under 5307 programming. That allows essentially these companies or these services to receive more money as it is associated with their operating costs. And we did the calculations both ways, and we still ended up with a significant amount of money that would be available for future programming. And so the TMA thought that it was appropriate to make sure that these bus services could continue to operate relative to their cost structure that has changed significantly. So that's what's out here. I would say that the commuter bus services are labeled that because we can't fund directly private carriers. And so the private carriers have gone through an RFP process. Trailways has gone through an RFP process. They're in the, my understanding is that NISDOT is in the process of signing contracts. And this money will not transfer through something called the capital cost of contracting to those individual companies until those contracts are completed. And we have several years now of allocation formulas, mainly because the contracts have taken so long to essentially be executed at the state level. That would be that these carriers would be eligible for. Does that help? That's clear as mud, right? Any questions? Any questions online?
I see no hands.
Hearing none, any opposed? Any abstentions? Still carried, thank you. Item E. Draft UCTC Resolution 2023-09, apportionment of federal transit funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, in the Mid-Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area. I have a motion for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Do I have a second?
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Supervisor, much appreciated. Ryan, discussion.
Yeah, I apologize. These are two late additions that the TMA had been working on an agreement for in the past several weeks. We prepared the resolutions, but we forgot to print them. So which is why they're not included in the physical packet here, but we do have copies of them shown digitally on the screen now, and we can certainly make them available as well. So the first resolution 23-9 is regarding the apportionment of the FTA funding from the American Rescue Plan Act and attributable to the Mid-Hudson Valley TMA. So the ARPA funds, as we refer to them as, were approved on March 11th by Congress, and on March 29th, the FTA released the funds and provide them to eligible entities for federal fiscal year 21. So the amount of funding made available to the Poughkeepsie-Newburgh urbanized area, which of course Ulster County is a part of, it's EZA 89. It's a significant amount of funding. It's $66,481,159. In the resolution attachment 1 that is shown on the screen now, we have already allocated $37,997,365 through this distribution. So we currently have unallocated in ARPA funds over $28 million. And so through agreement, through the 3 TMAs, including New York State DOT, we have agreed to a distribution as shown to the public operators. Dutchess County would receive 8.1 million in 5307 funds. Orange County 15.1 million, and Ulster County 5.2 million. These funds, the amounts were derived from. Did you have something to add, Dennis?
Yeah, I did. And I'm going to let you finish. I think you're maybe getting there, and I apologize, Brian.
They were derived from the amount of project administration costs that were for a 2-year period of each public operator. So essentially, we looked at the tip and all the eligible costs under operations, and then doubled that amount for 1 year. The year we looked at was federal fiscal year 2023 for each provider. And I believe we actually got a little more than that.
So let me just give you some background here. I want you to think back to what happened in the pandemic when we had CARES, and there was a substantial amount of money because of the significant burden on transit when COVID hit. They effectively shut down for all intents and purposes, and ridership dropped precipitously. So the CARES money came out for transit, and it was a significant amount of dollars. Some of these, for example, I believe Trailways got somewhere in the neighborhood of about $12 million in terms of funding, and others had also significant amounts of dollars. So I want you to think back to the resolution we just passed, which essentially had pieces of the funding going to the public carriers, which is Dutchess, Orange, and Ulster as a county, right? The public transit systems, and then money going to what they call the inter-county commuter transit systems, which is short line trailways, and I forget which one is over in Dutchess County. So when we looked at the money that was made available from CARES, right? There was a significant amount of money by the formulas that we were using that would go to the private carriers using ARPA monies, to the tune of somewhere in the neighborhood of little over 29 or $30 million to be split up among the private carriers. We went out and had a conversation with the private carriers and said, do you actually have a need for this? Understanding this, ARPA can only be used for operating assistance. Can't be used for capital or anything else, only for operating systems, right? And I want you to think about what I said is what is happening with operating is their bus ridership is down. So they're not operating as many routes as they used to operate. And they're operating more leanly and more efficiently. So the short answer is when we went out and asked those carriers, do you have a need for the funds? The answer we got back is they haven't spent what we've already allocated to with respect to CARES. Take that inside and say, ARPA only gives you till 2026 to allocate the money, to spend the money. They allocated by 2024 and spent by 2026. We then went back and said to the public carriers, how much operating assistance would you need to essentially carry you through for 2 years of operating assistance, assuming that you can basically take your 5307 monies and use that for capital, right? Your bus facilities you could use for capital. And then how much operating assistance would you need? Those carriers came back to us and said, we would need X amount of dollars for operating assistance, right? So when what we did is we looked at that and said, what happens in terms of the allocation that was going to go to the private carriers? What happens if we use that to assist the public carriers in the region and make sure that we can meet their operating costs? And that's the answer that's in front of you right now. Those are the answers that are in front of you right now, which does two things. One is it reduces the amount of funds that may be necessary for the counties or the other people to essentially, the counties themselves, actual taxpayer dollars within the counties themselves to pay for their operating of their transit system. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does, it allows the UCAT and others to essentially use its other federal funds to meet its capital facilities needs. And the capital facilities needs are not insignificant with respect to the Public Carriers Act. So what we've done is we've shifted money that the private carriers do not need to the public carriers to cover their operating costs, which allows one, the reduced amount of monies that are needed from the counties to essentially meet the public carriers' needs that are not currently met. And two is allows the public carriers to essentially do additional investment in capital facilities. That's what's happening. I don't know whether I ever get enough money, but we're trying. With it, and this is, I mean, this is understanding strategic thinking with respect to how you use your transit dollars and essentially trying to reduce those to make sure your transit agencies are able to meet the needs of the people they serve. And B is that we can maximize our need for capital investments into the future. And I think if everyone takes a look at the capital investments that are needed to move fleets into a green fleet profile, they're significant and quite frankly, more than the amount of federal dollars that are made available on a regular basis. So we took advantage of this opportunity to essentially set this money in so that we would have additional capital dollars here. I mean, we're looking at substantial capital needs with respect to Ulster County, not only with respect to actually buying the buses, but also having a place to put them. So that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what the other counties are trying to do as well. Does that help as an explanation? I just want to let you know where the money's coming from. We just didn't suddenly find 30-some million dollars. We actually took it away from people that didn't need it.
Feel you'll be able to spend it in operations by twenty.
I mean, the county currently subsidizes, county taxpayer dollars currently subsidizes UCAT to the tune of at least $3.5 to $4 million. So the short answer is that will reduce that subsidy and it's in the same, and at the same time, allow the county to invest in additional capital facilities. Any questions? Any comments? Hearing none, any opposed? Any abstention? Thank you. Where am I on now, Brian?
Yes.
Thank you.
Last one. Okay.
Item number F, draft UCTC resolution 2023-10. Apportionment of federal transit funding from the coronavirus and relief supplemental appropriations, otherwise known as SARISA, in the Mid-Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area. Do I have a motion for discussion? Thank you. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Brian,
Again, in similar fashion to resolution 9, I apologize for not having a printed copy of the resolution. It is available on screen. We'll be sure to put that in the packet online after the meeting. The CARISA funds were approved on December 27th, 2020. It's the Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021. And again, similarly intended to provide COVID relief for a number of purposes. On January 11th of 2021, the FTA released the formula funds. And again, these are 5307 funds attributable to the Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, New York, New Jersey urbanized area. So the funds are shown in attachment 1 for 2021. The full allocation was just over $4 million. We have previously allocated 2.3 million. And so we have currently unallocated $1.7 million. And the distribution between the 3 public entities are shown in the attachment. Ulster County would receive $318,192.
and the formula for this is a similar formula that we use for 5339 and 5307 funding. So the means in terms of how we arrive at the numbers. This can be used either way. This can be used for any, this funding is eligible for any funding that 5307 is eligible for. This funding can be used.
And just to clarify, with regard to these past 4 resolutions, providing monies to Ulster County Area Transit, whenever a project or a specific purpose is identified by UCAT, it needs to be put on the Transportation Improvement Program. So there would be forthcoming amendments to the TIP once those projects are identified. So again, these dollars are going into savings essentially at this point.
Yeah, it's a good point. We're
for future
allocating
purposes.
allocating funding, not allocating projects. Any questions? Comments? Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, other old business. Brian.
Sure. With the assistance of Region 8, LPU, Nicole, and staff, David and I have been working on administrative modifications to the Transportation Improvement Program. So every year, the Federal Highway Administration takes a snapshot of the transportation improvement programs around the country. They like to give us a little report. They're called TIP performance. They want to see us obligating as all the funds that are originally programmed per year. They want us to obligate 100% of those funds. New York State DOT does a great job of obligating 100% of the funds statewide every year because they have great accountants who can make sure that all the funds that are allocated to the state are spent. But in order to do that, if our projects are not meeting their schedules, we don't want to take the funding away. What we do is amend the TIP and move those projects to the next federal fiscal year. And that is to improve our snapshot and the TIP performance as far as the FHWA is concerned. So these are administrative modifications. They don't require approval of the Transportation Council. They can be done by staff because they are all within the first 4 years of the existing transportation improvement program. But we like to make you aware of the changes for information purposes. Each local sponsor, when it does involve a local municipality, is contacted. We review the changes and get their general approval regarding the need for the change. And so the projects affected, we do them all in one batch because it's all generally for the same purpose, again, which is TIP performance. So those projects affected include the Route 209 sidewalk improvement project in the town of Warsing. They're very close to having design approval of that project, and we anticipate construction in 24 finally on that project, which is well over 10 years at this point. Town of Warsing, D&H O&W rail trail also needs to be pushed out for a variety of reasons to 2025. Go ahead. Those are the two Warsing projects. Town of New Paltz. This project we were discussing with Nicole, we may actually pull this. It sounds like they're very close to having their bids issued, and we may be able to obligate this in 2024. So we'll put this on the back burner, and hopefully we can get this, the town can get this approved for 2024. City of Kingston, Flatbush, and Foxhall Ave are pushing out to 2025. Significant funding shortfall on that project. Town of Rochester, Boyce Mill Road Bridge, again, pushing out to 25. There's still right of way acquisition that is occurring on this project. Ulster County, Turnwood Bridge, 2025. Beaverkill Road, Scutterbrook Bridge, again, rolling to 25, construction phases. UND Phase 1 project. This is the Shandaken Rail Trail that we received a Transportation Alternatives Program grant. And we only recently have our engineering under contract. So this project has really just begun. So we're going to roll this to 25 as well. We wouldn't expect construction until 25 at the earliest. Is that all?
Was it the last one here? Town of Ulster.
Yes,
Boyceville.
the Boise's Lane signal improvements. Rolling to 25. So those include all the administrative modifications, again, just shown for information purposes at this point. Any questions? We will be moving these forward through approval in a big batch. Maybe later in the month, you'll see. There's no huge rush, but they need to be approved prior to mid to late September.
That's a rush. It's mid to late August.
Well, they're already written up.
Program.
All you have to do is push a button there.
That's a rush.
That's all I have for TIP performance administrative modifications.
No other.
Under below that project updates, there's a few links that I provided on the agenda just for your information. We have a number of GIS dashboards that you might find interesting. We provided these at the last meeting, but I kept them up again in case you didn't see them. David has been working on. Of course, we don't put the title, so I'm not sure. The link is a bit of a surprise once you click on it.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get.
I was thinking it might be useful to talk about the urbanized area boundaries first, but
Yeah.
You
Is
wanna
that
do
the
that?
fir- is that
I don't
the-
know if that's the first link, but I have it up separately.
Okay,
But
good.
that's probably a more productive conversation in
Yeah.
the dashboards.
Be my guest, Dave.
So every 10 years, the census releases a new urbanized area based off of population. This time was an interesting update because they changed the process for defining the urbanized area. So the skips, how far you could skip between urbanized areas or areas of population got shrunk. So in certain areas where we have geographic or geological limitations where you can't develop, that kind of extended out. So it really created probably a good overview here is the purple background color here, which is very difficult to see on the screen, is the pre-existing 2010 urbanized area, the adjusted urbanized area. The green that we see here is the new 2020 urbanized area as defined by the census. Now the MPOs and DOT, we get to go do a smoothing process to create a Federal Highway Administration urbanized area boundary. So this allows us to take these kind of locations that you have that don't necessarily make sense for a roadway, and it allows us to extend them out to make sure that you have a roadway completely covered by the urbanized area or the characteristics of where you would expect development to occur. The previous boundary, we had funny things like this that extended up into Greene County. That was added in 2010, but with the new changes, we no longer have to go up that far. Now, when we do our adjustments, we have to include everything that's defined by the census, but we can extend beyond that. So this is a draft that I've put together with the new boundaries. So the red outline here is what we're looking at to consider for our urbanized area. We've kept mostly with the 2010 boundaries, but we did constrain ourselves in a couple of areas, such as up here in the northern section of the county where extended in green. We did drop that down a little bit. Some extraneous ones we've dropped as well, little things that were sticking out, kind of artifacts of the previous iteration. We've been able to drop out. This one's kind of an interesting one. This is Sawkill Road, which we used to extend out into Woodstock all the way up here. Instead of doing this kind of ribbon development, ribbon section that had dropped out in the 2020, so we only had to go as far as this green section. And so instead of doing the connection that way, we've opted to do it along the Route 28 corridor instead, because we did have to include this. This was a new addition, and then we decided to kind of extend it up through here to make the connection into Woodstock, which we felt made a little bit more sense. Again, we had some things that we've haven't pulled that one off before. Sorry, trackpad here. About there. Okay. I'm just doing highlights, kind of some of the big ones. We've constrained this, which we used to extend down 209. That's kind of getting pulled back a little bit. And then the other thing that we had neglected to do in the previous iteration that Orange County was mostly noted for was the separation of the urbanized areas. So we have the Kingston urbanized area, which we've kind of looked at extending to Woodstock up to Saugerties. But then as we go south, you run into that Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, New York, New Jersey, which is the TMA area, that UZA 89 that we used to talk about. But the changes and the skips and the jumps, it's separated out New Paltz. So New Paltz is no longer connected here. It kind of skips. So the boundary comes over through here, but then it separates out. So we have to show these separate urbanized areas, which is why we have the red line kind of going around here and separating out New Paltz. Then we get into this Poughkeepsie Newburgh section, and we've kept a lot of that the same as well. Again, just a few sections that we've kind of dropped out, and then there have been a few additions where to follow the roadways that we didn't used to have, just to make sure that it's consistent between that. The implications, I guess, of the boundary, I neglected to mention, big implications are for your functional classification, which affects if you're, if you're eligible for federal aid, and for FEMA and emergency response funding as well.
Think of it this way, there's federally aid eligible roads that are defined either as urban collectors or rural collectors. And so what you're trying to make sure is that particularly along major state corridors, we don't run into a situation where part of a major state corridor is a urban collector and and the other part of it's rural. And then it goes back to urban again. So you want to try to keep that functional class all the same, not only with respect to urban, but also with respect to whether you're not changing back and forth in the corridor. And then on the southern half of the county, we wanted to try to make sure that we matched up to the boundaries that are being drawn in Orange County. So.
And Orange County hadn't finalized theirs, but we did have a meeting with them to kind of go over, and it looks like we're matching up everywhere where we need to in this portion. And when we're doing these boundaries, we try to also anticipate where development is expected to occur over the next 10 years as well, just to make sure that we're capturing some of those areas. The last one where we kind of made changes was in the Ellenville area, and we had gone through quite a process in the previous iteration, back and forth with DOT on that. And this one we just kind of constrained it a little bit more, so that way we dropped out some of these very rural areas that were kind of an artifact of the boundaries that we were using at the time. This time we don't have to adhere to census boundaries, so we did do some manual adjustments, and we just tried to kind of bring things in a little bit more and cut down on some of the overextension that we had previously. So this viewer will make available to members if they want to dive in and take a look at specific locations. This will be a process back and forth. We will be coming back to the table to go over the changes, and I can't remember the timeline for final approval, but there is going to be additional outreach.
The process at this point, these draft boundaries have been submitted to New York State DOT.
Have not yet.
We haven't submitted.
No, because
draft.
we wanted to show them here.
And then they'll be submitted to New York State DOT. Requires New York State DOT sign off. And then we can come back to the council through resolution. And they will need to be approved by resolution at a later date prior to the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's coming up fast. Yeah.
No run.
Push a button.
Yeah.
Just push a button. There's quite a bit of effort here,
It's
and
a lot of
a lot of this effort is essentially not trying to, but is dictated by NISDOT in terms of what they want to see. So what we're doing is literally fine tuning stuff that NISDOT is focused that they need to see, and for really good reasons. So it's not arbitrary capricious. It's really good reason for what we're doing. So that's why David, we wanted to make sure that the council had seen this, but we need to submit it to NISDOT as soon as possible.
Question from the city of Kingston.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Am I remembering right? A year or so ago, there was a concern that the Kingston urbanized area might no longer qualify based on the population. Is that still a concern or no?
So no longer a concern. The numbers came out. We're about like the 5th or 6th smallest MPO in the nation. Smallest in New York State.
We made it by 240 individuals.
Yeah, population threshold was 50,000 that we had to hit, and it was 50,200.
Okay.
Hang on,
But that's assuming that this boundary is approved. Is that right?
No, that's based off of the census. So that green area that we have on the map, that's defined by the census. Right now, we're just smoothing it out. It doesn't impact our allocation amounts. It just kind of impacts roadway eligibility is the best way to look at it.
That's a good question, John. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions from the council on this? Brian, any other updates?
We have several projects that are ongoing, including the Route 9W Corridor Management Plan, Mobility Plan, and the City of Kingston Railroad Safety Study. Those dashboards are linked, and you can see project progress. We just completed a survey for the 9W study, and we'll have published the survey results any day now. Also, we are currently updating our website and having it completely redesigned by a firm out of the Albany area. And that project is going very well. We look forward to showing you some draft images, probably at the next meeting, of what the new website will look like. It's going to be more pleasing to the eyes, for one, but it's also going to be so much better organized and easier to find documents and navigate. We're really looking forward to getting that underway and out there. 3 projects in the hopper. We have completed the procurement process for 2 FTA planning studies, one including the coordinated plan. This is the coordinated human services public transit transportation plan, which is an FTA requirement. So we'll be hopefully having a kickoff meeting sometime in October if we can get the contract executed by then. We also have completed the procurement process for the route optimization study. This is a pretty extensive look at the UCAT system and analysis of all of the routes and looking for efficiencies and improvements in that system. That will be an extensive study as well, and we are presently doing contract negotiations.
No, the contract negotiations are done. Basically, what we are at now is there's draft contracts that have to go to the legislature for approval because they're over $50,000. So those will be in front of the legislature for the September meeting. So I'm currently finished one draft that's up in contract management to go to the legislature, and the other one should be finished by this afternoon.
And finally, I just issued, it will be issued on Thursday, a request for proposals for assistance with the public engagement process associated with the update of the long-range transportation plan. Seems like we just completed the long-range transportation plan yesterday, but it's now due for its regular 5-year update no later than September 30th, 2024, which is right around the corner. We are not doing a full-scale update of this document. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I think the data is very good. I think the layout is very good. So we'll be updating data where available, making sure that the document meets all federal requirements. There are a few new additional requirements since the bipartisan infrastructure law was passed. But the purpose of the RFP is to have a consultant assist us with the public engagement process, conducting meetings, posting websites and surveys, and things of that nature. And we also hope to have a fully digital plan. So it won't just be a paper document anymore, but it will be a plan that will exist online into the future if we have a successful procurement process, that is. So that RFP will go live on Thursday for the New York State Contract Reporter.
And then you want to mention participate also, right?
Yeah, sure. I did include at the bottom of the agenda a link to the new Participate Ulster page. This is a endeavor embarked upon by Ulster County government, and so UCTC can certainly participate as well. Participate Ulster, if you're familiar with Engage Kingston, it's the very same type of software that provides a really great platform for public engagement for all types of projects, planning projects and construction projects alike. So UCTC, when appropriate, will be using Participate Ulster to inform the public about our project schedules, opportunities for participation and input, and things of that nature. There's also a really good mapping component that allows participants, when we create the widget, essentially, to provide input through an online mapping tool, and also to engage in conversations so people can see each other's comments. Unfortunately, the Granicus company that manages the software does also provide overview of all those public comments. So if there are any off-color remarks made by the public, they will be removed by our consultants prior. So some great new tools that are becoming available to us, with our ArcGIS online, ArcHub, platforms that we've been using more. The new website for UCTC, which I would expect to be completed and live by December. And now the Participate Ulster opportunities. We really have a lot of great tools to engage the public and keep everyone informed going forward.
Anything else, Frank?
The only other thing I have is that the Traffic Safety Board will meet on September 11th. That's Monday. We usually meet on the first Monday of every month, but that is a conflict with the Labor Day holiday, so we have decided to postpone. I don't have any agenda items at this time, but we do plan on it. 6 p.m. Ulster County Legislative Chambers.
Anything from council members? Anything online?
See no hands.
Anything from the public? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.